Tommy, let's talk transfers. There's a lot of rumours going around the league at the moment. This segment is brought to you by eToro as well. Tommy, we'll start with the coaching side of things as well. So Ufuk Talay officially confirmed for one more season at Sydney FC. The club has an option for a further year beyond that, which means basically he needs to start well and do well next season or it's curtains. A lot of fans we've discussed wanted him gone already. The board's decided to give him a little bit more grace, acknowledge that some of their recruitment errors contributed as well to why they didn't make the finals. Do you think this is a good call?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable. I think that, reading between the lines, I feel like this was done maybe a month before the end of the season. And I was a little bit bemused at the time if that is how it unfolded, why they didn't announce it.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. They had verbally agreed to a 2-year extension, apparently, but it wasn't signed. So the club reviewed it. They'd already agreed to the terms. They didn't make the finals. I think that 2-year agreement as well was going to be on the basis of you do this, you do that, this is what you will get.
Got you.
And so they looked at it. They took all the things into account. They probably looked at the market as well to see who else was available. And one of the big fish that we've discussed on this show as well in terms of who Sydney FC fans wanted, Graham Arnold is now in Iraq, so that one's off the table. And they probably just thought, we get the right signings in place and this can work because I like what he tried to do.
He's still a great coach. I think that, I'm sure he would have learnt a lot about this season, and I think his mistake this season was that he was, he spoke about it a lot even on this show. He said that, this is the way the way I like to approach the game. There's certain principles he adheres to, but he didn't have the team to adhere to those principles. So you need to adapt. If you keep doing the same things and making the same mistakes week after week and not changing, then you're not learning from your mistakes. And I think that, being a little bit more flexible in his approach is something he would have learnt in recent times. So it's probably the first kind of time in his coaching career where things haven't gone well. I think for Sydney FC, this is a huge off-season. I think their recruitment last year was wrong. They had too many attackers, not enough defenders, and that's something they're going to have to fix in this transfer window.
So a couple of those rumours.
Yeah.
Incoming Paul Ocon Jr. apparently, either on loan or permanently from Benfica. We've seen bits and pieces of him with the under-20s, obviously. He brings a heavy surname in terms of being Australian football royalty, the Ocon family. So the idea, I guess, would be he wouldn't come to Sydney FC. He's at the point in his career where he needs to play. Yep. So he would play, I envisage, next to Leo Senna.
Yep.
From what you've seen of him, do you like that combination, or do you like this move for Sydney FC, especially if it's permanent?
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree in terms of his kind of playing style. His dad was such a terrific kind of technical midfield player, and that's exactly what he is. And I think we saw with the young Socceroos in their tournament how good he was, and he was pivotal to the way that they played. And I think it would be awesome to see him in the A-League. He's one of Australia's most exciting midfield talents, I think, and to have him at Sydney FC would be great for Sydney FC and great for the league. But, going a little bit deeper than that, I think it would be a little bit sad to see Caceres leave Sydney FC. I think that he's been pivotal to a lot of their success, so I'd love to see them ideally play together.
Yeah. And then the other one, and the rumour that won't go away, is Joe Lolly apparently being looked at by Perth Glory very closely, and there's even been reports that Perth and Sydney have discussed a possible swap deal where Adam Taggart would go to Sydney FC and Lolly to Perth. I personally can't see that happening, mostly because Adam Taggart has been on the record talking about how if he finished his career and he didn't win any silverware with Perth Glory, obviously knowing that he's a WA boy, that he'd feel like he'd failed. So that's clearly something he wants to do. It's on his football bucket list to tick off before he retires. Having said that, though, he'd fit in very well into Sydney FC's team.
Well, I think if you're looking at a kind of Australian number 9s, he's one of the first names that comes to your mind, obviously involved in the Socceroos setup at the moment as well. This season was terrible from Perth's perspective, but last season he scored 20 goals, so he's a fantastic player. And the thing that would surprise me is it's not surprising that Sydney FC is interested potentially in Adam Taggart and that Perth's interested in Joe Lolly, because who isn't interested in them? But I can't see
Teams are interested in good players, I guess.
Exactly. So I think the interesting thing would be how big of a decision it would be from both teams if they let the other player go. I think there would be questions asked about that, I think.
We'll rip through some of the last rumours on our list, Tommy. One is Bruno Fornaroli, also being looked at by Perth Glory. Again, apparently he's got a house over there, but the Mariners and the Jets are apparently looking at him too. If you were Bruno, which one would you pick?
I would love, obviously I played for the Mariners myself, I'd love to see Bruno play at the Mariners, and I think, this year they missed a goal scorer, and to see him playing in front of the palm trees every week would be awesome.
Caceres is being looked at by Auckland and MacArthur. MacArthur gives him the benefit of not having to move cities.
Yeah.
Auckland gives him his old coach, Steve Corica, and an excellent team as well.
For me, Caceres is in the top couple of midfielders in the league, and he has been for a long time. So, I think, again, every team would be interested in him, and it's probably also about his ambitions in the Socceroos, and he wants to be in a team that will be successful, I'm sure. So that's an interesting one. Sure.
Craig Goodwin to Adelaide United, are you shocked?
I'm not shocked. And, I think, who knows? Obviously, he's had a few stints there, and he's just part and parcel of that club. But it'll be great to have him back in the league. So hopefully that happens.
Totally. Clayton Taylor, Newcastle to MacArthur, apparently.
Yeah. So is he still on contract?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he's looking for a release. And look, on one hand, Newcastle looks like they're building something pretty interesting under Mark Milligan. On the other hand, MacArthur's been a good launching pad for young players as well, particularly wide young players. You can see him sort of becoming the Jed Drew, not only in terms of on-field role, but also what MacArthur will be trying to do with him as well. They'd want to bring in players like that, hopefully turn them into some money.
And also, I think sometimes for young players as well, a new environment can help, take you to another level. We've seen it historically. For example, when I was a young player coming through, I played with Robbie Cruz at Brisbane, and we had glimpses, and he was doing really well. But then when he went to Melbourne Victory, he just took it to another level. And I think that, that would be the idea behind that from his perspective, is trying to emulate something like that.
Totally. Juan Mata, we heard from him last week on this show talking about the possibility of investing into an A-League club. Apparently he has looked at the Central Coast Mariners.
Right.
So have Queen's Park Rangers. I've heard they've actually had people fly out to Gosford to check out the club, and they were impressed with what they saw. Either one of those would be a good outcome for the club, right?
Awesome. I think, the fans just deserve, after so many years of uncertainty around the ownership, I think that some clarity and some certainty moving forward would be awesome for the fans and for the club. And it's such an awesome club. It's probably one of the only regional clubs in the league, and I think they're so important for the A-League. And I live on the Central Coast myself, so I love the Mariners, and I love going down to watch them when I can. So I'd be all for either of those. They've
also been linked with Asier Ilaramendi.
Oh,
Tommy,
that's a throwback. That is. I mean, yeah. There's something about the Mariners and attracting these kind of Spanish players, and I think
Luis Garcia.
Exactly. So
he'd also not played for a little while as well, so sort of semi-retired.
And he had his moments when he
wasn't bad.
He wasn't bad. No, I think that would be awesome. And
I think the important thing for the Mariners and clubs like them is that if you're going to build a team from youth, you need to have good experience around them.
Yeah.
That's why I like the idea of Bruno going there or going to Newcastle as well. You want those kind of guys who can help show the ropes to those young players, because otherwise, things go bad in a season and those young players are sort of looking for people to lean on, and then they're not there.
And you saw that probably with the Mariners, but with a lot of teams this season. I think there was a little bit of a leadership vacuum in some of the teams, and when things didn't go well, there was nobody to kind of steady the ship, and that's exactly what these kind of players would provide.
Last one, we know that Max Burgess has left Sydney FC. Newcastle? Do you think he'd look good sliding in some through balls for Eli Adams, or working on the other side of the pitch to him?
I think those two together, that would be a force to be reckoned with. And I think at Sydney FC, we didn't probably see the best of Max Burgess like what we saw at Western United, but he's a terrific talent, and I used to hate playing against him because he was so technical, but also kind of with his long limbs, he was just so awkward and such a hard person to get the ball off. So I'm excited to see him play more minutes than he did at Sydney FC and be back in and amongst the goals and assists.